The
This room
champagne
is
bubbles
absolutely
caught the
stunning, isn't
candlelight
it?
like tiny
Yes, but not
captured
as stunning as
stars,
you.
but
You're too
Olivia
kind.
Morrison couldn't bring herself to drink. She stood at the edge of the Grandview Estate's marble terrace, watching the city lights blink in the distance like 1,000 promises the world never intended to keep. Her father had taught her that every painting tells a story, but tonight she wished her own story had a different plot. The black cocktail dress she wore was borrowed, the heels pinched her toes, and the smile she'd been wearing all evening felt painted on, ready to crack at any moment. 26 years old, and she'd already learned that life was less like the romantic films she loved and more like a sketch that kept getting erased and redrawn. Olivia worked at the Meridian Gallery downtown, a small but respectable establishment where she spent her days explaining the meaning behind abstract paintings to tourists who mostly just wanted directions to the nearest coffee shop. The job paid barely enough to cover her tiny apartment's rent, but it kept her close to the art world her father loved so desperately. Thomas Morrison had once been a celebrated painter, his landscapes gracing the walls of collectors across the state. But talent and business sense rarely walked hand in hand, and after her mother's death from a sudden heart attack 3 years ago, her father had lost more than his wife. He'd lost his inspiration, his discipline, and eventually his collectors. The small studio he rented in the arts district was gone now, sold to pay mounting debts. All that remained was the cottage, the little stone house by the lake where Olivia's mother had planted roses and hung wind chimes that sang in the summer breeze. Tonight's charity auction was supposed to be networking, a chance to meet potential clients who might commission her father's work. But an hour into the evening, Olivia had realized that nobody wanted to buy paintings from a has-been artist, no matter how beautiful his brushstrokes. She had excused herself from a painfully polite conversation with a tech entrepreneur who collected digital art, needing air and a moment to regroup. The corridor leading away from the ballroom was quieter, decorated with oil paintings of stern-faced ancestors who seemed to judge her every step. She was heading toward the powder room when she heard her father's voice, low and strained, coming from an alcove near the servants' staircase. Olivia froze, her hand gripping her small clutch purse. "Mr. Blackwood, please, I just need another week," her father was saying, his voice carrying a tremor she'd never heard before. "The cottage is all I have left of her. All Olivia has left. Thomas, we've had this conversation 6 times already." The other voice was smooth, almost pleasant, which somehow made it worse. "You borrowed $30,000 8 months ago. You've paid back less than 4. I'm a businessman, not a charity. The property deed you signed as collateral becomes mine on Tuesday at noon." Olivia's heart stopped. The cottage. Their cottage. The place where her mother's presence still lived in every creaking floorboard and sun-faded curtain. Her father had put it up as collateral, and she'd known nothing about it. "I have paintings," her father pleaded. "Good ones. They're worth more than the loan. I just need time to find the right buyer. Your paintings aren't selling, Thomas. That's why you came to me in the first place." Vincent Blackwood's voice held no malice, just cold fact. 72 hours. That's all I can give you. Otherwise, the cottage is mine, and we both know I'll tear it down and build something profitable. Olivia didn't wait to hear more. Tears blurred her vision as she spun away, her heels clicking frantically against the polished floor. The elegant hallway became a tunnel, the walls pressing in as panic seized her chest. She kicked off her shoes mid-stride, scooping them up in one hand as she ran past startled guests and disapproving staff members. She didn't have a plan. She just needed to move, to escape, to be anywhere but here where her world was crumbling in whispered conversations behind closed doors. Her father had lied. Not maliciously, she knew that. He'd lied to protect her from the weight of impossible choices. But that somehow made it worse. Olivia rounded a corner near the estate's east wing, her stocking feet silent on the carpet runner. She was moving so fast, so blindly, that she didn't see the man until she crashed directly into his chest. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs. Strong hands caught her arms instantly, steadying her before she could tumble backward. Her shoes clattered to the floor, and she found herself staring up at the most striking face she'd ever seen. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with shoulders that filled out his charcoal suit perfectly. Dark brown hair was swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from marble, all clean lines and sharp angles. But it was his eyes that stopped her, a deep amber color that seemed to glow in the hallway's soft lighting, filled with immediate concern. "I'm so sorry," Olivia gasped, trying to step back, but his hands remained gentle but firm on her arms. "Are you hurt?" His voice was deep, cultured, with an underlying warmth that contrasted with his formal appearance. "I'm fine, I just need to." She trailed off, realizing tears were streaming down her face. When had she started crying? "You're not fine," he said quietly, his amber eyes studying her face with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable but instead made her feel seen. "And you're not wearing shoes." Olivia looked down at her bare feet, at the expensive shoes scattered on the carpet. A broken laugh escaped her throat. "I was running." "From what?" He asked it simply, without judgment. "From everything." The words came out before she could stop them. "From reality. From truths I wasn't supposed to hear." The stranger didn't let go of her arms. Instead, he released one to bend down and collect her shoes, this man in his clearly bespoke suit kneeling to retrieve her department store heels. The gesture was so unexpectedly kind that fresh tears spilled over. "Please don't be nice to me," Olivia whispered. "I can't handle kindness right now." He straightened, holding her shoes, his expression softening. "What's your name?" "Olivia." "Olivia Morrison." "Olivia," he repeated, making her name sound like something precious. "I'm Julian. Julian Westbrook." The name meant nothing to her in that moment, though later she would realize she should have recognized it. Julian Westbrook, the real estate developer who'd transformed the city skyline with sustainable buildings that somehow managed to be both profitable and beautiful. The billionaire whose face appeared in business magazines next to words like visionary and maverick. "Mr. Westbrook," she began, but he shook his head. "Julian, please." He glanced down the hallway, then back at her tear-stained face. "Olivia, I don't know what happened, but I can see you're in pain. Can I help? Would you like to sit down somewhere quieter?" "You can't help," she said, accepting her shoes from him but not putting them on. "Nobody can help. My father's about to lose the only thing that matters, and I just found out by accident because he's been protecting me from the truth." Something shifted in Julian's expression, understanding mixed with something deeper. "That's a heavy burden to carry alone." "I'm not alone," Olivia said quickly. "I have my father." "Who isn't telling you the truth," Julian pointed out gently. "That's a special kind of loneliness." Olivia stared at this stranger who somehow understood exactly what she was feeling. "Why are you being so kind to me? You don't know me." "Maybe that's exactly why," he said. "No expectations, no history. Just one person trying to help another." He paused, his amber eyes holding hers. "And maybe because the moment you crashed into me, something felt different. Like the universe was trying to tell me something." Despite everything, Olivia felt a small smile tug at her lips. The universe just wanted to humiliate me further. Mission accomplished. "The universe wanted us to meet," Julian corrected softly. "And I'm grateful it did, even if the circumstances are painful for you." She should leave. She should thank him politely and walk away from this impossibly handsome stranger with his kind eyes and gentle hands. But something held her there, something in the way he looked at her like she mattered. "I should find my father," she finally said. "Let me give you my card first." Julian reached into his jacket pocket, producing an embossed business card. "If you need anything, anything at all, call me. Even if it's just to talk." Olivia took the card, her fingers brushing his. "Why would you do that?" "Because I want to see you again, Olivia," he said simply. And because I think you might need a friend right now. I have friends. You can never have too many. His smile transformed his face from handsome to absolutely devastating. Will you call me? She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. This man existed in a world of penthouse apartments and private jets, while she worked 2 jobs and worried about grocery money. But something in his eyes made her want to take the risk. Maybe, she whispered. I'll take maybe, Julian said. It's better than no. As Olivia walked away, slipping her shoes back on, she could feel his gaze following her. She made it to the powder room before her legs gave out, sinking onto the velvet bench and staring at her reflection. Her makeup was ruined, her eyes swollen from crying. But she was holding Julian Westbrook's card, and despite everything, despite the cottage and the debt and her father's broken dreams, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Olivia stared at her phone for the 5th time that morning, Julian's number saved but untouched. 3 days had passed since the auction, 3 days of watching her father pretend everything was fine while the cottage deadline loomed like a storm cloud. She'd said nothing about what she'd overheard, couldn't bear to add guilt to his already heavy burden. Instead, she threw herself into work, spending long hours at the gallery rearranging displays that didn't need rearranging. Her phone buzzed, making her jump. A text from an unknown number appeared on the screen. Good morning, Olivia. I hope you don't mind, but I asked around and found out you work at the Meridian Gallery. There's a small exhibition opening today at the Riverside Studio. Contemporary landscapes. I thought you might appreciate it, and I'd love your company. Julian. Olivia's heart did something complicated in her chest. He'd found her, sought her out, remembered she loved art. She should feel invaded, but instead she felt noticed in a way that made her skin warm. Her coworker and closest friend, Natasha Rodriguez, peered over her shoulder. Is that him? The mystery man from the auction? He wants to take me to an art show, Olivia said, still staring at the message. And you're going, Natasha said firmly. Don't even think about saying no. You've been moping around here like a ghost. Go. Live. Let a handsome billionaire buy you coffee. How did you know he's a billionaire? Natasha pulled out her own phone, showing Olivia a business magazine article with Julian's photo. Julian Westbrook. Real estate developer. Net worth somewhere in the billions. Also, apparently, a philanthropist who funds art programs for underprivileged kids. She raised an eyebrow. He's one of the good ones, Liv. Olivia texted back before she could overthink it. What time? His response was immediate. I'll pick you up at 2. Wear comfortable shoes. We might be walking. When Julian arrived at the gallery precisely at 2, Olivia was waiting outside, wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater that Natasha had insisted brought out her eyes. He stepped out of a sleek black car, but instead of the formal suits she'd seen him in, he wore dark jeans and a fitted Henley that made him look younger, more approachable. You look beautiful, he said simply, and the sincerity in his voice made her blush. You look different, she replied. Less corporate mogul, more normal person. I am a normal person, Julian said with a smile. I just happen to have an abnormal bank account. The Riverside Studio was a converted warehouse with exposed brick walls and natural light streaming through massive windows. The exhibition featured works by emerging artists, landscapes that reimagined familiar scenes through unexpected perspectives. Julian moved through the space with genuine interest, asking Olivia's opinion on composition and color theory, listening intently when she explained why certain pieces moved her. You should be a curator, he said as they stood before a painting of a forest rendered in blues and purples instead of greens. You see things other people miss. I don't have the credentials, Olivia said. Just a lot of time spent in my father's studio growing up. Tell me about him, Julian said. Your father. So she did. Standing in that quiet gallery, Olivia found herself telling Julian about Thomas Morrison's glory days, about her mother's sudden death and how it had shattered her father's world. She told him about the cottage and the wind chimes, about how her father hadn't painted anything meaningful in 3 years. He blames himself, Olivia said quietly. He thinks if he'd been more successful, if he'd managed money better, my mother wouldn't have been so stressed. The doctors said stress contributed to her heart condition. That's a terrible weight to carry, Julian said. Guilt for things beyond our control. Something in his voice made Olivia look up. You sound like you know about that. Julian was quiet for a moment, his amber eyes distant. I lost my mother when I was 16. Cancer. My father was always working, building his business empire, and I blamed him for not being there during her final months. I was angry for years. He paused. It wasn't until after he died that I found her letters. She'd made him promise to keep working, to keep building, because she didn't want him to watch her fade. She was protecting him the only way she knew how. Olivia's hand found his without thinking. I'm so sorry. We protect the people we love in strange ways sometimes, Julian said, his fingers curling around hers. Even when it means carrying secrets that hurt us. They stood there, hands linked, surrounded by paintings of reimagined worlds. Olivia felt something shift between them, a recognition of shared grief and understanding. Would you like to get coffee? Julian asked. There's a place nearby that makes the best cinnamon lattes. I'd like that, Olivia said. The cafe was small and warm, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in local artwork. They found a corner table, and Julian ordered for both of them, somehow remembering that she took her coffee with extra foam. They talked for 2 hours, conversation flowing easily from art to music to childhood memories. Julian told her about growing up in boarding schools, about learning to build things because it made him feel connected to something solid. Olivia shared stories about her mother teaching her to see beauty in ordinary moments, about how she still heard wind chimes and thought of home. I'd like to see your father's work sometime, Julian said. If you'd be comfortable with that. Olivia's stomach tightened. He doesn't show his paintings anymore. He's too ashamed of where he is now compared to where he was. Shame is just fear wearing a disguise, Julian said gently. Fear that we're not enough, that we'll be judged for being human. Before Olivia could respond, the cafe door opened, and a man in an expensive overcoat walked in. She recognized him instantly, Vincent Blackwood, her father's creditor. He was younger than she'd imagined from his voice, maybe 40, with slicked back hair and cold eyes that swept the room with practiced assessment. Those eyes landed on their table, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition. Julian Westbrook, Vincent said, approaching their table with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Small world. Julian's entire demeanor changed. His relaxed posture stiffened, his jaw tightening. Vincent. I didn't know you frequented places like this, Vincent continued, ignoring the obvious tension. I thought you preferred establishments with more zeros in their price points. I prefer places with character, Julian said coolly. Something you wouldn't understand. Vincent's smile sharpened. Still bitter about the Harbor District project? That was business, Julian. Nothing personal. You displaced 300 families, Julian said quietly. That was very personal to them. Olivia's mind raced. Julian knew Vincent Blackwood. They had history, clearly antagonistic. Her heart began to pound as Vincent's gaze shifted to her. And who's this lovely companion? Vincent asked. None of your concern, Julian said, his voice carrying an edge Olivia hadn't heard before. But Vincent was already studying her face, and she saw the moment recognition clicked. Wait. Morrison. You're Thomas Morrison's daughter, aren't you? The artist who owes me money. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. You have business with her father? Julian's voice was dangerously quiet. A loan arrangement, Vincent said smoothly. Though I'm surprised the daughter of a debtor is keeping company with you, Westbrook. Quite the social climb. Leave, Julian said, standing. He wasn't a physically imposing man in terms of aggression, but there was something commanding in his presence that made Vincent step back. Now. Vincent held up his hands. Touchy. I'll go. But Olivia, he turned to her, remind your father. Tuesday at noon. The cottage becomes mine if he doesn't have my money. After Vincent left, Olivia couldn't look at Julian. Shame burned through her, hot and terrible. I should go. Olivia, wait. You know him, she said, her voice shaking. You know the man who's going to take our home, and I just sat here talking to you about art and coffee like I'm someone who belongs in your world. This was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Julian said firmly. And yes, I know Vincent Blackwood. He's a predatory lender who profits from other people's desperation. I've been trying to shut down his operations for years. Olivia finally met his eyes. My father borrowed money from him. $30,000. We have until Tuesday to pay it back, or we lose the cottage. The only thing we have left of my mother. Julian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, let me help you. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. I can't let you pay off my father's debts. That's not why I agreed to see you. I know that, Julian said. But Olivia, I have resources you don't. Let me at least look at the situation. Maybe there's another way. Like what? Julian sat back down, pulling out his phone. Your father is an artist. I'm opening a new hotel in the spring, a boutique property focused on showcasing local culture and art. What if we commissioned him to create pieces for the building? A legitimate business arrangement, not charity. Olivia's heart ached with hope and suspicion. Is there really such a project, or are you making this up to help me? There really is such a project, Julian said, showing her architectural renderings on his phone. I've been searching for the right artists for months. If your father's work is as good as you say, this could be perfect for both of us. And if it's not good enough anymore? Olivia whispered. He hasn't painted anything worthwhile in years. Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Julian said. But Olivia, you have to let me try. Please. Let me at least meet him, see his work, make an honest assessment. Olivia wanted to say yes. Every fiber of her being wanted to grab this lifeline and hold on tight. But pride and fear warred in her chest. What do you get out of this, Julian? Really? He reached across the table, taking her hand again. Honestly? I get to spend more time with you. I get to help someone who deserves it. And I get to put Vincent Blackwood in his place, which is always satisfying. His amber eyes held hers. But mostly, I get to see you smile again instead of carrying the weight of the world alone. Tears pricked Olivia's eyes. This is too much. We barely know each other. Then let's change that, Julian said simply. Have dinner with me tomorrow. Bring your father if you want. Let me see his paintings. Let me make an offer that's based on merit, not pity. If his work isn't right for the project, I'll tell you honestly, and we'll find another way to help. Another way? I'm a very resourceful person, Olivia. And I'm very stubborn when I decide I care about something. He squeezed her hand gently. Or someone. Olivia sat there, looking into the eyes of this man who had crashed into her life, literally, at her lowest moment. A man who somehow saw past her panic and pride to the person underneath. A man who made her want to believe in second chances. Okay, she whispered. Tomorrow. But Julian, if you're doing this just to be kind, if there's no real interest in my father's work, please tell me now. I can't handle false hope. I never make promises I don't intend to keep, Julian said. That's a rule I live by." As they left the cafe together, Olivia's phone buzzed with a text from her father. "Coming home late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you." She showed it to Julian. "He's probably at the cottage, trying to figure out what to pack. What to save." "Not yet," Julian said firmly. "Tuesday is still days away. A lot can happen in days." Olivia wanted to believe him. Standing there in the fading afternoon light, her hand still warm from his touch, she let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, the universe that had pushed her into Julian Westbrook's arms had a plan after all. The next evening, Olivia stood outside the cottage with Julian, her stomach twisted in knots. The little stone house looked exactly as it always had, roses climbing the walls, wind chimes singing softly in the breeze. Her father's old truck was parked in the gravel driveway, and she could see him through the window, moving around in his makeshift studio. "He doesn't know you're coming," Olivia said quietly. "I told him I was bringing a friend who wanted to see his work, but I didn't mention your name." "Are you afraid he'll refuse?" Julian asked. "I'm afraid he'll see this as charity and his pride will destroy our last chance." Julian took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "Then we make sure he understands this is business. That I'm here because I need art for my hotel, not because I'm trying to rescue anyone." "But you are trying to rescue us," Olivia said. "No," Julian corrected gently. "I'm trying to give your father an opportunity to rescue himself. There's a difference." They walked to the door together, and Olivia used her key to let them in. The cottage smelled like oil paint and coffee, familiar scents that made her chest ache. Her father emerged from the studio room, wiping his hands on a paint-stained rag. Thomas Morrison was in his late 50s, with gray threading through his dark hair and kind eyes that had seen too much loss. "Livy," he said, smiling. Then he saw Julian and his expression shifted to confusion. "You brought someone." "Dad, this is Julian Westbrook," Olivia said. "He's a real estate developer, and he's interested in commissioning artwork for a new hotel project." Recognition flickered in her father's eyes, followed by something that looked like shame. "Julian Westbrook. I've read about your buildings. Beautiful work." He glanced at Olivia, then back to Julian. "My daughter didn't mention she knew you." "We met recently," Julian said smoothly, extending his hand. "At a charity auction. Olivia told me about your landscapes, and I've been looking for artists who can capture the spirit of this region for my new boutique hotel. I'd love to see your portfolio if you're willing to share it." Thomas hesitated, his hands tightening on the paint rag. "Mr. Westbrook, I appreciate the interest, but I should be honest with you. I haven't produced much new work in the past few years. My recent pieces might not be what you're looking for." "Let me be the judge of that," Julian said. "I've learned that sometimes the most powerful art comes from periods of struggle. Pain has a way of deepening perspective." Something in her father's posture softened. He led them into the studio, a sun-filled room that had once been a bedroom. Canvases leaned against every wall, some finished, many abandoned. But even Olivia, who had grown up surrounded by her father's art, felt her breath catch at what she saw. The recent paintings were different from his earlier work. Where his celebrated landscapes had been bright and hopeful, these were moody and complex. Storm clouds gathering over familiar fields. Autumn trees losing their leaves in winds that seemed to carry grief. A lake at twilight that somehow captured the feeling of endings and beginnings simultaneously. Julian moved through the room slowly, examining each piece with careful attention. He said nothing for several minutes, and Olivia felt her anxiety spike. What if she'd been wrong? What if her father's work wasn't good enough? "These are extraordinary," Julian finally said, and the reverence in his voice was unmistakable. "Thomas, these aren't just landscapes. They're emotional narratives. This one," he pointed to a painting of a forest path disappearing into mist, "makes me feel like I'm searching for something I lost but might find again." Her father's eyes widened. That's exactly what I was trying to capture. The idea that loss isn't an ending, just a transition to searching. How many pieces could you produce in 3 months? Julian asked. 3 months? Thomas looked confused. For what purpose? My hotel opens in May, Julian explained. I need 12 to 15 original pieces for the main spaces. Large-scale works that will set the emotional tone for the entire property. I want art that makes people feel something, that tells the story of this place and its people. He turned to face Thomas directly. I think your work could be perfect. But I need to know if you can deliver on that timeline. Olivia watched her father struggle with hope and doubt. Mr. Westbrook, that's very generous, but I have to ask. My daughter works at a gallery. Did she tell you about my financial situation? Because if this is some kind of pity project, I can't accept it. Dad, Olivia started, but Julian held up a hand. Thomas, I'm going to be very direct with you, Julian said. Yes, Olivia told me you're facing financial difficulties. And yes, that made me want to meet you sooner rather than later. But I've been planning this hotel for 2 years, and I've looked at work from dozens of artists. Nothing has felt right until now. He gestured at the canvases. This is what I've been searching for. Raw, honest emotion translated into landscape. If your situation were different, I'd still be standing here making this offer. The only difference is the timeline might be more flexible. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. What kind of compensation are we discussing? Julian named a figure that made Olivia gasp. It was more than enough to pay off Vincent Blackwood and keep the cottage. It was enough to give her father breathing room, supplies, time to create without the weight of desperation. That's too much, Thomas said immediately. It's market rate for original commissioned work of this scale and quality, Julian countered. I can show you comparables if you'd like. I'm a businessman, Thomas. I don't make offers that don't benefit me. Your art will increase the property value of my hotel. This is an investment, not charity. I'd need to see a contract, Thomas said slowly. Terms in writing. My lawyer can have something drawn up by tomorrow, Julian said. But I need your answer soon. If you can't commit to the timeline, I need to find another artist. Olivia held her breath as her father looked around his studio, at the paintings that had poured out of his grief and guilt. She could see him wrestling with pride and pragmatism, hope and fear. Can I think about it overnight? Thomas asked. Of course, Julian said. But Thomas, can I tell you something? Artist to art appreciator? Her father nodded. Your work during your successful period was beautiful, Julian said. But these pieces, the ones born from your pain, they're transcendent. You haven't lost your gift. You've deepened it. The world needs to see what you've created from your struggle. Not despite it, but because of it. Olivia saw tears form in her father's eyes. When had anyone last told him his art mattered? When had anyone seen value in the work he'd created from his darkest moments? Thank you, Thomas said quietly. For seeing something worth saving. I'm not saving anything, Julian said. I'm recognizing what's already valuable. After Julian left, promising to send the contract details the next day, Olivia sat with her father in the studio. The evening light cast long shadows across the paintings, and she could hear the wind chimes singing outside. He seems like a good man, Thomas said finally. He is, Olivia replied. And he cares about you. I could see it in how he looked at you. Olivia felt her cheeks warm. We barely know each other. Some things you know instantly, her father said. I knew I was going to marry your mother the first time I saw her. She was standing in front of one of my paintings at a gallery, crying. When I asked why, she said it reminded her of home. Of belonging somewhere. He smiled at the memory. 3 months later, we were married. This isn't the same, Olivia protested. Isn't it? Thomas turned to face her. Livy, I've been so ashamed of failing you, of losing everything your mother and I built. But maybe I needed to lose it all to find something more important. To remember why I paint in the first place. Why do you paint? Olivia asked, though she'd heard the answer before. To capture moments of beauty in a broken world, Thomas said. To remind people that even in darkness, there's light. I forgot that for a while. I let the darkness win. He gestured at the paintings around them. But maybe these pieces, born from my grief, can remind others that broken things can still be beautiful. That loss can transform into something meaningful. Olivia moved to hug her father, tears streaming down her face. You never failed me, Dad. Not once. I should have told you about the loan, Thomas said. About how bad things had gotten. I was trying to protect you, but I just made you carry worry without understanding. We protect each other in imperfect ways, Olivia said, thinking of Julian's words about his mother. But we're going to get through this together. No more secrets. The next day, Julian's contract arrived. Olivia sat with her father as they reviewed it, both amazed by how fair and generous the terms were. A significant advance payment, delivery deadlines with built-in flexibility, and a clause that gave Thomas Morrison artistic control over his creations. He really does believe in your work, Olivia said. Thomas signed the contract with shaking hands. That afternoon, they went to Vincent Blackwood's office together. The advance payment from Julian's commission had been transferred that morning, and Olivia watched her father write a check for the full amount owed. Vincent's expression when he saw them was priceless, shifting from smug anticipation to obvious disappointment. You found the money, he said flatly. I found something better, Thomas replied. I found my purpose again. As they walked out of Vincent's office, the cottage deed safely back in Thomas's possession, Olivia felt lighter than she had in years. Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. How did it go? She typed back quickly. We saved the cottage. Thank you for giving my father back his dignity along with his home. He saved himself. I just opened a door. Have dinner with me tonight? I want to celebrate. Olivia smiled at her father. Julian wants to take me to dinner. Then go, Thomas said. Live, Livy. Your mother would want you to live fully, love freely, take chances on beautiful things. That evening, Julian picked her up in his car, but instead of a fancy restaurant, he drove them to a small lakeside park. He'd prepared a picnic, complete with candles in glass jars and her favorite foods that he'd somehow discovered she loved. This is perfect, Olivia said, sitting on the blanket he'd spread under a large oak tree. I wanted somewhere we could really talk, Julian said. Without interruptions or performances. Just us. They ate and talked as the sun set over the water, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that would have made her father reach for his brushes. Julian told her about his dreams for the hotel, about wanting to create spaces that felt like home rather than just luxury. Olivia shared her secret ambition to curate exhibitions someday, to help artists like her father find audiences who would appreciate their work. You could curate for the hotel, Julian suggested. Not just this project, but ongoing exhibitions. Rotating artists, local talent. Make it a living gallery. You'd trust me with that? Olivia asked. I'd trust you with much more than that, Julian said quietly. His amber eyes held hers in the fading light. Olivia, I know this is fast. I know we've only known each other for a short time. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since you crashed into me at that auction. I haven't stopped thinking about you either, Olivia admitted. I want to see where this goes, Julian said, reaching for her hand. Between us. I want to take you to galleries and make you laugh and learn everything about you. I want to be someone you can count on, someone who sees you for exactly who you are. What if who I am isn't enough? Olivia whispered. What if you get bored of my small world? Your world isn't small, Julian said firmly. It's full of art and love and loyalty and strength. You face hardship with grace. You protect the people you care about. You find beauty in broken moments. He cupped her face gently. You're everything I didn't know I was looking for. Olivia leaned into his touch, feeling something settle in her chest. Something that felt like coming home. I was so scared that night at the auction. Scared of losing everything. And then I ran into you. Best collision of my life, Julian said with a soft smile. Mine too, Olivia agreed. As they sat there under the darkening sky, surrounded by the sound of water lapping against the shore and wind moving through leaves, Olivia thought about her father's words. About how broken things could still be beautiful. About how loss could transform into something meaningful. She thought about her mother, who had taught her to see beauty in ordinary moments. Who had hung wind chimes and planted roses and loved imperfectly but completely. Her mother would have liked Julian, Olivia realized. Would have seen past his wealth to the kind heart underneath. What are you thinking? Julian asked. That sometimes the worst moments lead to the best ones, Olivia said. That hearing that terrible conversation about losing our home led me to run into you. That my father's struggle led him to create his most powerful work. That endings and beginnings are sometimes the same thing. Your father is a wise man, Julian said. Beauty in broken moments. It's something my mother used to say, Olivia told him. She collected broken things. Chipped teacups, cracked vases, damaged picture frames. She'd fill them with flowers or photos and say that cracks let the light in. She sounds like she was an extraordinary person. She was, Olivia said. She taught me that perfection is overrated. That the most beautiful things are the ones that have survived being broken. Julian pulled her closer, and she let herself lean against his solid warmth. I'm not perfect, Olivia. I'm demanding and stubborn and I work too much. I've made mistakes in business and in life. I'm not perfect either, Olivia said. I'm proud and scared and sometimes I carry weight I should share. I hold on to things too tightly because I'm afraid of losing them. Then maybe we're perfectly imperfect together, Julian suggested. Olivia tilted her head to look up at him. Maybe we are. When he kissed her, gentle and asking rather than demanding, Olivia felt something unlock inside her chest. All the fear and worry and shame that had been building for months seemed to flow out, replaced by something warmer. Something that felt like possibility. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity and growing connection. Thomas threw himself into the hotel commission, creating pieces that captured the essence of hope emerging from struggle. Julian visited the cottage often, ostensibly to check on the work's progress but really to spend time with Olivia. They fell into an easy rhythm of shared dinners and gallery visits and long conversations that stretched into the early morning hours.